What's going on, guys? Nathan Barter here with Lambo Media, joined by special guest Beau Sulser. He is in the Pittsburgh Pirates organization, and he is also one of the founders of Homegrown Baseball. Thank you for joining, Beau. How you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Not too bad, just hanging in there. Thank you for joining.
Hey, I'm glad to be on. Thanks for reaching out and having me talk to you guys.
Of course. So first and foremost, I just mentioned that you're one of the founders of the company Homegrown Baseball, alongside Joe Musgrove and Cole Tucker. What was the reason for starting that up?
So, I kind of thought the idea up in my head, and it's kind of my baby. I thought about it, and really, it came down to just the fact that people were missing baseball, and I get to see these guys work every single day, how they train, and I learn a lot from watching them. And I'm a professional myself, and so really, that's what got the wheels turning, and trying to give some behind the scenes access to these guys and what they do every single day to stay being the best in the world.
Right.
And as we got to start doing it, and as I started thinking about it, I just thought of more and more ways we could make it easier to view and better to view. And so instead of doing like a live, I was like, you know what, let's get down and get a videographer, edit the videos out so you get to see not the mess ups, not um, any pauses, and it gets right to the point and into the important information to really help the next generation of baseball players learn the game.
Right. Isn't Cole Tucker's brother the videographer?
Yeah, so Cole Tucker's brother is a videographer by trade. That's what he does. So his name's Quinn. He has done an amazing job. He's really awesome to work with, and his videographer skills are awesome. He actually usually does music. He's never really done stuff in the sports world. He does festivals and a lot of bands he's worked with and stuff like that. So this has been new for him, but he did play baseball, so it's also nice to work with a videographer that knows the game.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of baseball lingo and different angles to get, and it
Right.
helps having a guy that knows baseball.
Right. When was Homegrown Baseball started up?
So really, we've been working really fast. I thought of this idea and brought it to Joe Musgrove first, actually, about a month ago. So a month ago, and I pitched to him, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, I got a good idea. I say we get together and we basically do an online camp where we cover every aspect of baseball, from the mental game to, your bullpen session, to hitting, to arm care, to speed and agility. Put it all in one place with the guys we know, our personal contacts, and see if they're on board, and try to get a video up and do. Our initial goal was 30 videos, but we wanted to make sure each video was quality, and so we didn't want to try to make sure we got 30 and then the quality would suffer. So we're going to end up with about 22 to 25 videos. We're still in the process of filming them and editing them, since we only started a month ago.
Right. So did you, Cole, and Joe have a relationship before this started?
Yeah, so I actually work out and train with Joe every single day. So we have the same trainer, the same pitching coach, the same agent. So I get to see him all the time. And then Cole Tucker has just been somebody. For those of you that don't know Cole, he is his brother jokingly calls him the mayor, because he's just the nicest guy, right? So when I went to my first spring training, I got to meet Cole in 2018. That was my first spring training, and he was just a nice guy, good leader, goes out of his way to say hi to you, even if he hadn't met you, and stuff like that. So I've gotten much closer with him as I've played more and more in the organization, and everybody knows Cole Tucker. He's just a really good guy.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
I saw a few of your guys' package deals on your website and Instagram page. Tell the viewers a little bit about those and what players they can get tips from.
Yeah. So what we ended up doing is that's really part of the reason why I wanted to get Joe and Cole Tucker on is they have a lot of the contacts with the big league guys that I don't, and
Right.
I thought it'd be really valuable to learn from some of the best in the game, like Cody Bellinger and Joe Musgrove himself, Chris Archer, and so those are some of the guys. So basically, we have a group of about 15 players. I don't want to forget anybody, but I'll name a few. So you got Cody Bellinger, Cole Tucker, Joe Musgrove, Jordan Luplo, Chris Archer, Logan Allen, Jacob Nottingham, Scott Kingery, My older brother, Cole Sulser, who's in the big leagues with the Orioles. And then we have some minor league guys like myself, Blake Drake, Jake Reed. We have a trainer, a couple videos of trainers that's our actual trainer. So he's a professional trainer, a professional mental strength coach. So we have some stuff from him. Jared Oliva. So we got a wide range of guys, and what I tried to do is get guys that have a really good strength in each category, right? So like Cody Bellinger obviously mashes baseball. So
Yes.
our goal was to get him for hitting. And then Jared Oliva is in the minor leagues, but he stole over 40 bases last year. So we got him on the art of stealing a base and speed work. And then Joe Musgrove, obviously, for pitching. We have Blake Cederland, who has topped out at 102. So we have him on there talking about velocity and mechanics specific to velocity. And then we have, different stories I wanted to hear. For example, my brother, I look up to him a lot, and I got to learn from him just from being around him, you know what I mean? Being his younger brother. But he has such a cool story to tell because he went to Dartmouth College, which is, I attended there as well, but it's a prestigious Ivy League school, and you can get out making good money, right? Get into the real world and get a really good paying job. And my brother's goal was to be a big leaguer since he was 5 years old. And so he was a senior sign. He signed for $2,500 in a late round. And he had the opportunity. He had a mechanical engineering degree from Dartmouth. And, always having that drive to pursue baseball for 7 years. So he had 7 years in the minor leagues before he ended up making his debut last year. And he's had 2 Tommy John surgeries. And so it's just a good, like, he showed me at any point, he could have given up and been like, I can go make really good money with my mechanical engineering degree, but this is my dream. This is what I want to work towards. I'm going to keep doing it until they tell me I can't. And I think that's a really good message. So, for example, in his video, we get a little bit of him pitching, but I think his strength really is, how to deal with adversity, how to deal with failure. And so he talks all about that. And so we tried to, get just everybody's strong suits and put it into the videos.
Right. That's awesome how you guys have a wide range of stuff that players can learn from.
Yeah. And then just so you guys know how it works is basically, for $100, you can go on there and you get access to all, like I said, 22 to 25 videos. We're waiting on a confirmation from a couple players, but, even at 22 videos, they're averaging about 25 to 30 minutes long, nonstop. There's no commercials, no breaks. And you get access to those forever. So we're not doing a subscription model. This isn't a monthly cost. It's a one-time fee. And then you get to watch those videos over and over again. You can revisit them 5 years from now and look back at the drills Cody Bellinger does. And if the mental training video is really cool. It goes over some different ways to incorporate your into your everyday life, how to grow mentally, and you can always go revisit them. So we wanted to make sure we gave access to our customers like forever and for as many times as you want. So that was our goal when building it. And then, we tried to make it at a really accessible price point, but we just have to cover costs in terms of our website, our videographer and stuff like that. And other than that, none of these players are getting paid. So that's a big aspect, I think, which is cool, and a really cool message for the kids is, we're not paying them, right? So they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart and trying to teach the game to the next level and to the next generation of players coming out, which just shows you a lot of these players that are involved and who they are and how much they care about the sport itself.
Right. You mentioned you looking up to your brother a lot. Did you and your brother have a lot of competitiveness going on when you were younger?
Yeah, of course. Always. I don't know if you have a brother or not, but being the younger brother, you always, want to think you're the best at everything, but you're always younger, so you're not, right? He's always better, but it always pushes you to be better and better every single time. So I got the opportunity when I was younger to play up. He's 4 years older than me. And so there's a couple times I got to play with him when I was like 9 and he was 13. But it was really cool. I think the best experience I've ever had was we just missed each other in high school. But in college, he stayed for a 5th year because he redshirted after his first Tommy John surgery. And so that was the first time we got to play on the same team, legit. And so we played on the same college team, and he was my baseball captain. And it was a really, really cool experience to have your big brother as, a mentor and a leader on the team and just learn from him. And then to continue to have him in the sport, it continues to have us. We're still competitive to this day. We'll throw
Yeah.
and I'll tell him my changeup's better than his, and he'll tell me his slider's better than mine, and that he throws
Yeah.
harder. And it's just funny because I'm bigger than him now. I'm stronger and faster, and he still throws harder than me. So I'm still trying to get there. I got to make it translate on the mound a little bit better like he does. But everything's always a competition.
Yeah. But before I get into your pro career thus far, you obviously went to a prestigious school in Dartmouth. Uh, how big were academics for you growing up?
Academics were always huge. So my parents, basically instilled in us that you're allowed to play sports because you do well in school. You're not, and I think it was always an important message for me, and that, sports wasn't the first thing. Don't get me wrong, my dad is an old school country guy, and so his whole thing is if you're going to do anything, do it well. So although I got to play every sport when I was younger, I was never that kid that could take anything lightly. Like if I was playing basketball, my dad was having me practice basketball, right? And
Yeah.
he was like, don't waste your time. If you're going to play something and if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability, and that includes school. So my family and my mom and dad instilled that into me. And I think exactly that. It goes into the school. And it also, as I got older, I realized that baseball is not a guarantee, right? You never know what's going to happen. I've had Tommy John surgery myself. And it's not you might get hurt. Everybody at some point, whether you're Nolan Ryan or you're somebody that had to quit playing baseball in high school, you hang up the cleats at some point. And so if you can use the game you love to better your life in any way, then that's awesome. And so that's what my goal was, is to use baseball as a tool to get me into a better school than I normally could have got into, because I wouldn't have been able to get into Dartmouth on my own without baseball. Just didn't quite have the good enough grades. I had really good grades,
Yeah.
really good test scores and stuff like that, but I used baseball to help get me there. And you close a lot of doors if you don't take school seriously, in the recruiting process and just outside, right? So whenever baseball ends, you want to make sure you put yourself in a good position for the rest of your life, and that's the biggest message I can say about school is push yourself, go to the best school you possibly can, because you never know when the game's going to end.
Right. Did academics always come easy to you, or was that something that you just really worked hard at?
So a little bit of both. There were certain subjects that came easy to me, and then there were certain subjects that did not. So I was always really good in math and science, but when it came to reading and writing, I very much didn't have the patience to read, and which led to me not being a good reader and or a good writer. But as I got older, into the high school range, you realize how important it is, and you just have to push yourself. So a little bit of both, but I think it really is important to focus on it and not shy away from what you're not good at, right? Like work hard to improve your weaknesses, just like you would on a baseball field. If your weakness is power, right? As a hitter, you're gonna focus on that. You're gonna work on that to try to make that better. And just like in school, trying to be as well-rounded as an individual as possible, in all areas of life, business, school, sports, whatever it may be. I think working on your weaknesses is a huge aspect. And so I definitely had to do that. Not all of school came easy to me.
Most definitely. So let's get back into the baseball side of things. Have you really noticed a dramatic difference in skill set when transitioning from high school to college ball and then college ball to professional baseball?
Yes, yeah. So, and we actually touch on this in one of our videos, and how to adapt and keep growing as a baseball player. We have some really good examples of that guys have either had to change arm angles or just change the way they've been doing things, just because the game changes. And so I'm a perfect example of the game does get harder, right? So high school to college, I was the number 3 hitter in high school. I was the number 1 starter, and I'm going to a smaller Division I school. And my thought process was like, I'm going to come here and dominate. I'm going to dominate. I'm going to earn a spot right away. And I got there and I got 10 innings total my freshman year, right? I got 10 innings my freshman year, didn't have a good ERA in college. And you just use it as a learning experience, right? And you keep getting better and better. And so, without being too long-winded, it does change a lot. Even, if you guys look at my stats from pro ball, my very first year in pro ball, I had like a 5.5 ERA, and my stats every single year, even though I've gone up in levels, have gotten better and better.
Yep.
And my AA stats this year, which, they say arguably once you're in AA, you're good enough to play in the big leagues. You've just got to, have the chance. And it was the hardest competition I faced, but I've had the best stats. And it's just because I've continued to grow. And so, although this wasn't directly related to your question, the answer is yes, it does change a lot. And I guess my biggest message with that is just continue to grow and never become content, because just because you're good at the one level you're at doesn't mean that you're going to continue to be good. So, just for example, after my first year or my first full season in low A, I had a really, really good year. I had, a 2.2 ERA or something like that, over a strikeout an inning. But I already saw, I looked ahead and I saw that in AA, in AAA, in the big leagues, I was going to need more than just my 2 pitches. I was getting away with that in low A baseball with 2 pitches, 2 really good pitches, my changeup and my fastball. And I knew that wouldn't happen, right? At the upper levels, if you only have 2 pitches, unless they're, a Chris Sale slider or a Craig Kimbrell curveball,
Right.
it's hard to survive. And so I went and focused and developed another pitch, and I developed a cutter and worked my butt off all off season to do that. So I think that's a really good message for kids of all ages, is just because you're good when you're 14 doesn't mean you're going to be good when you're 18, doesn't mean you're going to be good when you're 20. Just continue to keep getting better every single day and kind of believe in the process, not just the results.
Right. So we'll touch up on your improvements in pro baseball as far as your ERA goes here in a little bit. But before we get into that, you mentioned that you struggled a little bit in your first year of college baseball with your ERA in particular. How is that mentally for you?
So it's tough, right? You have to come to the realization that you need to work on stuff. But I think the biggest thing with that is, and we touch on this in some of our videos, but the biggest message is that, taking a failure or a situation where you didn't do as well as you thought you could have or were expecting, and using that to learn from. And so mentally for me, that's where my big brother came in to help a lot is, and you guys can, even if you don't have a big brother, just have a mentor, right? Have somebody you look up to, a friend, an older friend, your parents, your friends, your grandparents, whoever it is. And, I'm sure they have a lot of wisdom to teach you and help you through it. And just don't, if you guys fail, you guys don't do as well, it just comes down to being able to use that and grow from it and not be discouraged. So using that as fuel to help fuel your changes and making progress, and not let it discourage you from continuing to play.
Right. So you're currently in the Pittsburgh Pirates organization. You're drafted by them in the 10th round of the 2017 draft. How's the whole draft process like for you?
It was awesome. So, I was lucky enough that I knew. So my process is when you're a senior, your process is a little less stressful, right? Because I already know I'm not going to get a big signing bonus. I signed in the 10th round, which is, it's a good round. To be in the top 10 rounds is awesome, but I only got $5,000 as a signing bonus. And I knew that going in, right? Because the big leagues don't have to give you anything to incentivize you. Because if I say, no, I'm not going to play, then I have to go into finance or, something like that. So,
Right.
So my draft process was, I think, especially good because it wasn't very stressful. I had a really, really good season my senior year.
Good.
And based on all the phone calls and the teams calling and stuff, I knew I was going to get drafted. And so when you're not worried about really the money and there's not stressful aspects of it, and you're going to get picked, it's a really fun process because it's just you're looking forward to something you've been working for your entire life. And to get that opportunity, it was amazing. So the call itself was actually interesting. Just because like some teams check in with you more than others and different stuff like that. So I actually didn't even know I was going to become a Pirate, and they called me right after, which is just kind of funny. I was sitting there, and the New York Yankees had actually called me in the 10th round and said, "Hey, we're picking you with our 10th round draft pick. Will you sign for this amount of money?" And I was like, "Yes, I'll sign. I'll sign." And so he said, "Awesome. We're taking you, just so you know, and be ready to go." And I'm like, "Awesome." And the Pirates actually had a pick 2 picks before the Yankees. And so I hadn't heard from the Pirates except for like way earlier in the morning. And they said, "Hey, we're thinking about taking you today," because the draft is split up into 3 days, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
so I was the last round of the second day. And so the Pirates were like, "Yeah, we're thinking about maybe taking you sometime today, but if not, we're really interested in you on day 3." And I said, "Sounds good." And then I never heard from him again. And so I was sitting there watching the draft tracker on the computer with my family, and I was like, "Wow, I'm going to be a New York Yankee. This is cool. This is cool." And then all of a sudden my name popped up next to the Pirates, and I was just like thrown off. I was like, "Wait, is this a mistake?" And then of
Yeah.
course the Pirates called and let me know that they've drafted me, and they're really excited. And so it was a really cool experience, and I've been super lucky to be in the Pirates organization. I can't say enough good things about them and how they take care of their players. So everything happens for a reason. I've loved it so far.
Yeah, congrats on getting your name called in that draft. That's a
Thank
huge
you.
accomplishment you should be extremely proud of.
Thank you.
So you initially found out that you had been selected on the TV. You didn't receive a phone call before you didn't at all before you're selected.
No, so the Pirates actually had called right after. So they called in even in the second round. So picks at that point take place every 1 minute, right? And so I've never been inside of a draft room, but you can only imagine like how many players there are in the country and even the world, right? And so the draft and drafting players once every minute, you never know, right? You could have somebody lined up and then he gets picked by a team 2 picks before, and now you're like, "Oh my gosh, who?" So I'm sure they were trying to make last minute decisions. And then they called me right away. They were like, "Hey, I hope you saw we just picked you," and I was like, "Yeah, I saw it." So it's a cool process though, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we were talking a little bit earlier about how important improvement is in high school, college, and professional baseball. Like you mentioned, you started off your pro baseball career with a 5.31 ERA, and
Yep.
then this last season in 2019, you had a 2.72 ERA. So obviously, you've made drastic improvements throughout your pro career. What has been the biggest adjustment you've made throughout your career thus far?
So I've been lucky enough. I actually have worked with the same pitching coach every single year so far. Weirdly enough, it usually doesn't work out that way in pro ball, but my pitching coach has basically traveled, and I ended up being called up to the team that he was on.
Good.
And he helped out a lot. He helped out with the mentality, and then it really just comes down to constant improvement and confidence. So my biggest thing is when I first got into pro ball. Um, I have gotten better, right? I've developed 2 more pitches. I'm more accurate than I used to be, stuff like that. So general improvements obviously help, but also just the mental side. I have a different confidence than I did when I first got, went into pro ball. I had this mentality that I had to like prove myself that, maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I shouldn't have been a 10th round draft pick. I don't throw because I'm not a guy that throws overly hard.
Hmm.
And so maybe I'm a guy that, and I was like, I don't throw hard enough. I don't, and I kept thinking about it in terms of, having a chip on my shoulder in a negative way. Like I
Right.
have to prove something, prove my worth to them, prove that I deserve to be here, prove that I'm good enough. And instead of, how I am now is like, I'm good enough. I just need to show them. It's not about if I can prove it to them or if I'm good enough or questioning my ability. It's more about like, I know I can do this,
Hmm.
and now I just got to show them, right? I've
Right.
prepared for this my entire life. I'm good enough to pitch at this level. I can get these guys out. Who cares who I'm facing? I can get them out. So time to do it.
Right.
And so that mental change, which really started with my pitching coach in Low A, who's Joel Hanrahan. And then he was the Double A pitching coach with me last year, and now he's in Triple A this next year. Um, and it started with him and him kind of just saying that. He's like, who cares who you're facing? Just get them out. You've got better stuff than all of these hitters can fit or than these hitters have. And so that mentality of having that confidence, I think, really helped. And it was just then about execution and not worrying about what you're doing.
Right. Did you change anything major as far as your mechanics go on the mound?
So as far as mechanics go, the only thing I changed is I shortened my arm action a little bit. It's kind of a common theme right now. If you see, I think one of the most dramatic changes or perfect examples of that is Giolito. So if you saw Giolito from like 3 years ago, he had a much longer arm action, and now you look and he's like right to the ear.
Right.
And all I did is it started honestly with the fact that it is slightly safer on the arm. There's a lot of studies that come out about, if your elbow is inside 90 degrees, that it helps with injuries. I'm not sure if that's exactly right or whatever, but that's the only real change of developing new pitches. But yeah, it's just shortening arm action. So what it allowed me to do is be more consistent. It allowed me to be a little bit more accurate because my longer arm action was harder for me to have the exact same timing every time. So shortening my arm action helped me out a little bit. But other than that, I think I had more of a mental change than anything.
Right. So that wraps up all my questions that I have for you. I really thank you for taking the time out of your day during this quarantine, and I wish you all the best and stay safe and healthy.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's also awesome to see somebody, in the game of baseball and following their dreams like yourself. So it's really cool, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you.